Victory. My name is Pastor Nneka, the presenter of this Hour of Victory. And in the studio with me, I have the MP of Edmonton, Mr. Andy Moore.
Thank you very much for having me on the program today.
Sir, we have so many youths in Edmonton, and there's a lot of concern concerning the youths on things like crime, guns, knives, forced marriages, early pregnancy. Sir, what have you done in your constituency to make sure that this thing doesn't happen as it's happening right now?
Well, that's a very long list of problems that we have in this community and lots of other communities. Let me deal with, I think, what the essence of your concern is, which is what is happening to our young people in this community. And of course there are problems. There's gang-related issues, there's antisocial behaviour that leads on to criminal activity, and of course there's gang violence, which is very much of concern both to the police but to the wider community here in this part of North London. The first thing I have to say is everyone takes this matter very, very seriously. It is perhaps one of the major issues that confronts us today. And there's a whole series of actions that we're trying to take, from making sure that young people don't carry weapons that can cause real injury and death, making sure that gang-related activity is monitored and dispersed whenever we can, trying to reduce antisocial behaviour, and of course trying to stop criminal activity. Now you have to do that in two different ways. First of all, we need to bear down on criminal activity. If people are found with knives, then they should be arrested for doing so. And that has to be a clear message that goes out. But of course there's another side to this issue. What do the young people do? What facilities and alternatives are available to them? Now the church is obviously one, but we need more community activities to take young people away from the streets and into more positive actions. And Enfield Council, myself and others are trying to arrange, the community itself are trying to arrange these alternatives, because that's the real solution, is to make sure that young people don't go down the track of getting into difficulty, antisocial behaviour, gang activity on the streets, and then criminal and violent activity. That's what we're trying to stop.
Of places. Every man shall give as he deserveth, according to their blessing. Sir, you mentioned if there's an organization can come up with some activities for the youth. My question is, sir, is there any support from the government to this organization to support these youths on all these activities?
Well, let me first of all say that we depend on the voluntary activities of a wide range of organisations and individuals and communities and churches. And that's the basis of our activities locally. People want to help, people want to do something to direct our young people in a positive way. But of course there is some support. Enfield Council has a youth service and some great facilities here in Edmonton. The police service do supportive activities to try and divert young people when it looks like they're going to be getting into criminal activity. The government has a small variety of programmes but don't really bear down. It's really for local organisations to come up with the resources. But let me stress, we all have a role in this activity. We can't depend always on being funded, at least to a certain extent funded. And it really is important that everyone in the community understands that if we don't all play a role, then we won't actually succeed. So I call on all the organisations, churches, voluntary bodies, youth groups. There's a wonderful programme here in Edmonton run by one of the churches, an amateur boxing club, and that really has given our young people a new direction, gives them a skill, gives them something to look up to and people to look up to. And it's an ideal programme, mainly done for voluntary activity, a small amount of support, and that's the sort of thing we need to make sure is developed if we're going to really tackle the problem here in Edmonton.
Voice of Victory Ministries. To partner with us, please call the numbers shown on the screen now or contact us by email info@voiceofvictoryministries.org. Our website is www.voiceofvictoryministries.org.
Knife crime is a real concern in our community these days. How can we make the streets safe and families safe from worrying about their child being caught up in these gangs?
Well, you're absolutely right. This is a major problem in our community. And the first thing we have to do is to take knives out of the equation. So they can do that in 2 or 3 different ways. First of all, there has to be real penalties for people that carry knives. And as you know, Parliament has just decided that if people are caught with knives on 2 occasions, then they will face a custodial sentence, and that's sending a really strong message out there that we won't have this sort of activity in our community. Secondly, the police have various electronic devices that can track knives, and they take them to bus stations, shopping centres, schools, and in other places to find out who's carrying weapons on them, and that's been very effective. The police also, whenever there's gang-related activity or gangs gather in different places in the community, they are there to make sure that they can search for knives and other weapons, guns that are, although guns I have to say are a much lesser problem than knives in our community, but they can find these weapons should they be being carried at that time. So that's, if you like, the stick. There's also has to be a carrot in all of this, and that is actually taking young people off the streets. We know what happens. Young people get involved with other young people. They don't have much to do with their time. They hang around on street corners. That leads to antisocial behaviour, lots of noise, disrupting the community, and then leads on to criminal, hardened, gang-related criminal activity. And what we need to do is to make sure that we see the early warning signs of that and divert people. And there's lots of sports programmes, activities, there's youth centres, there's boxing clubs, as I mentioned earlier. All of these are there to try and make sure that our young people have gainful activity. But let me be absolutely clear with you here. All of that is very good, but unless it starts at the family, families have a role. If they think that their young people are going wrong or getting into bad company, they have to take some action, or they need to call for people to support them. Now that can be the church, That can be voluntary organisations, it can be in extreme circumstances, the police that they call on to help. But let me be absolutely clear again, the family needs to play a role here, and only if families play a role can we really have a major impact in stopping our young people getting into difficulties.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, one of the code of practice is equal opportunities in our constituencies. How have you dealt with this in your constituency?
Well, that's a very, very important issue, because it's clear that not everyone has an equal opportunity.
That's right.
There are various barriers that are erected to make it more difficult for some people in our society, and that can include people from ethnic minorities who face particular difficulties. Starting at school, where the education system is geared to their needs, going on when they're looking for employment, when they want to take up other activities. All of these can be presented with barriers that makes it more difficult for them to be able to meet their ambitions in life. And I and my party are dedicated to trying to create a more equal opportunity society. So let me just mention a few of the things that we think are important in regard to that. Critically important, and perhaps the biggest issue, is education. Sadly, not all schools provide the same quality of education, and one of the things that we are dedicated to doing is making sure that all our schools give all of our children a good education, a good start in life. Opportunities to go on to higher and further education, we need to make sure that everyone gets that opportunity should they wish to take it up, and make sure that they can get into good quality higher education, universities. Because in this day and age, young people don't often realise it, but the possibilities for you to advance yourself in their society are very strongly based on getting a good education. So we need to ensure that that's the case. We need to also ensure that when people go for interviews or take place in competitive examinations of one sort or another to gain access to good quality employment opportunities, that's done on an equal opportunity, on a level playing field. And there are various steps that we've taken, but I think there needs to be more done to ensure that when people apply for jobs, they're not being discriminated against. And I think that that's a critically important thing, because the trust and confidence of all of our communities that they're getting an equal share in the good life is very important to us. So the question you ask is a very live issue. I have to say that many of our communities are making major strides forward. I can think back in communities that first arrived in the United Kingdom and in London 20, 30 years ago, many of whom their children and their grandchildren are really succeeding. But that doesn't happen for all of them, and we need to work out why it is that some of our communities aren't succeeding as they should. Is it that they're not working hard enough? I doubt that very much. I think they're all working very hard, but there are barriers there, and we need to reduce and eliminate those barriers so that they can enjoy the fruits of being a member of the British community.
Voice of Victory Ministries. To partner with us, please call the numbers shown on the screen now, or contact us by email, info@voiceofvictoryministries.org. Our website is www.voiceofvictoryministries.org.
Unemployment now in the country, and what have the government put in place to make sure that this unemployment rate is being reduced in the country and also in the community as a whole?
Well, we don't think the government has done enough. Let me say first of all that the rate of unemployment here in Edmonton is a good deal higher than it is in other parts of the country. So it's a particularly important issue for my constituents. And again, there are a number of straightforward steps that should be taken that we don't believe are being taken to address that. The first is we need to match up the skills of the people who are looking for work with the type of job that they're going to occupy. So skills training and retraining. Somebody loses their job in a factory, there's no need for that skill anymore. We need to reskill those people in order that they can take up the jobs that are available. And there's not enough resource put into skills training, apprenticeships, the sort of activities that will give them the possibility of finding a good job in the future when one becomes available. There are voluntary work programs around in the community. The government puts quite a lot of resource behind this, but we don't think it does enough to fund work programs, nor does it make sure that all our young people go on these work programs to be able to prepare themselves for work, which should have become available. Now, I won't go into the detail of why that is, but what we need to focus on is all of the young people that come out of the school who aren't in work, who aren't in training, who aren't still in education. We need to make sure that all of those young people get the opportunity to work for a period of time so that they're prepared, so that when an employer calls upon them, they'll have the experience of having worked. We don't think we're doing enough on that. We don't think there's enough compulsion in it. We need to make sure our young people undertake these programs. And if we can do that, then that will give the people experience of work, the proper skills, and therefore we should hope that they will get jobs and will reduce the level of unemployment here in Edmonton.
Thank you, sir.
Of places.
Every man shall give as he deserveth, according to their blessing. I want to ask, in line with that question, the government has put up this apprenticeship for the youths, but most of the youths are not attending this apprenticeship. What can we do for them to attend this apprenticeship? Because I am a trainer myself.
Well, I think there's a number of things we can do. First of all, in the education system, we need to be much clearer that there's an academic stream you can go on, and you can then go get A-levels and go on to university, and sky's the limit. And that's one option for quite a large portion of the community. But of course there are many young people that don't have the aptitude for academic study or prefer to do some other form of work. And we need to make sure that young people are aware of what the opportunities for those that want to take that track are available to them. And I don't think we do that enough. We just leave the kids to leave school and not really get involved in any gainful activity or employment at all. So we need to be absolutely clear. There's a career service there. It needs to be making sure that young people know what's available to them. And you're right that apprenticeships are not always taken up. In my view, we need to be clear with young people that level 1 apprenticeship or level 2 apprenticeship is merely a preparation. Yes, it's a good qualification. Yes, it will stand you in a good order with employers, but the real qualification you should be seeking, not straight away, but over a period of time, is a level 3 qualification, because that is really sought after by employers and will give you the opportunity to get a good job, an interesting job, and one that pays well. So we need to be absolutely clear with young people that apprenticeships are a progression to better things for them. But I think we also, and I come back to this constantly, our young people aren't prepared for the world of work when they leave school. They need a proper training and preparation, and that is the work programme. Whatever you call it, this government calls it the work programme, we called it something different, but it's a preparation, and all young people should be willing and able to go through that. It's not onerous, it's about self-discipline. And if we can get them to do that, if we can put more people through that sort of programme, then we're going to prepare our young people for work, and that's what they need.
Thank you very much.
Voice of Victory Ministries. To partner with us, please call the numbers shown on the screen now, or contact us by email, info@voiceofvictoryministries.org. Our website is www.voiceofvictoryministries.org.
Some youths would like to go higher, to be a potential figure in the society. What advice? Maybe they want to go for a councillor, they want to be a councillor, they want to be an MP, they want to go in the House of Parliament, they want to be a senator. What advice can you give them?
Well, I would give them more than advice, I would give them encouragement.
That's right.
Encouragement, because we need our young people to have the ambition to rise, to become a councillor, an MP, perhaps even Prime Minister. Sky should be the limit. And the first thing we've got to say is, if they work hard, if they apply themselves, then they will succeed. And they have to believe, we have to believe that, and they have to believe that. But we've made major efforts here in Enfield to ensure that the people who are elected as councillors to the London Borough of Enfield reflect the communities that now live in Enfield. And when I first came here, overwhelmingly it was the Indigenous community, and most of the councillors were from that community. Over the last 20 odd years, that's changed enormously. We now have major African communities, Cypriot communities, Turkish and other communities, all living here as part of the village that we call Enfield in Edmonton. What we've done is make sure, for example, we have a Turkish-speaking mayor this year. Last year we had a Nigerian mayor. Next year we will have a Ghanaian mayor. And that reflects the people that are on the council. But of course a lot of people say to me, but yes, going on the council, all very well, but what about going to become members of parliament? Well, we've made major strides, but not enough. Let me be very honest with you. There are lots of members of the ethnic minority communities who are now members of parliament representing constituencies, mainly in London, but also in other parts of the country. Major cities have all got ethnic minority MPs. But do we have the number of MPs that reflect the size of the communities in Britain? No, we don't. No, we don't, and we have to admit that. And therefore, we need to make more strenuous efforts to ensure that if a young man or a young woman shows real promise as a local councillor or as a trade union official or in business or as a lawyer, we need to make sure that if they want to rise in politics, they want to succeed, then that opportunity must and should be available to them. And we're making major strides to do that. I have every confidence that over the next 5 to 10 years, the numbers of ethnic minorities that are in Parliament will increase. And watch this space, because that is a very important question. And not only do we need to do something about it, but you need to be telling us that we need to do something about it.
Voice of Victory Ministries. To partner with us, please call the numbers shown on the screen now or contact us by email info@voiceofvictoryministries.org. Our website is www.voiceofvictoryministries.org.
Sir, please, how will you support this program, Hour of Victory, that will carry out every time to the audience? Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, by appearing on the programme, endorsing the work that you're doing through this programme. But secondly, in getting across a very, very simple message, which is that the Member of Parliament, me as the member for Edmonton constituency, represent the whole community. And I have to reassure people that they can trust me to represent them equally, fairly, in a non-discriminatory way with whatever issues come to them. So whether it's a personal problem that they may have, I want them to feel that they can come and see me individually. If it's a community problem or an organisational problem, I want them to invite me to come and speak to their group or their organisation. And when it comes to this programme, I want to appear on the programme, try and address the issues that you consider important, and assist in whatever way I can to ensure that your programme is a success, it reaches the community, it fulfills the ambitions and objectives that you've set for it. And through those mechanisms, get the message across that Members of Parliament are there to help, that Members of Parliament act in a non-discriminatory way, and that you can be sure that if you raise issues with me through the programme, through the church, or just as an individual, then I'll be able to take them up on your behalf.
Thank you, sir.